All right, today we're going to take a look at the place value system, and this should be something familiar to you. It's a system that you've really been growing since kindergarten. The moment you started to really look at numbers and particularly multi-digit numbers and understanding that each digit carries certain properties, you began to develop this understanding of the ones place, tens place, hundreds place, and so forth. And what this does for us is this helps us develop what we call number sense, in that you can look at a multi-digit number and gain a deeper understanding of that number by looking at each particular digit and understanding that it has a set of properties that builds into the overall value of that number. That's kind of what we're going to be looking at over uh, this lesson and lessons to follow. Um, Here's our learning target for today is that my goal for you is that you can read and write numbers from the billions place to the thousands place in standard, expanded, and word form. My expectation is that at this point, standard, expanded, and word form should be a part of your tool belt in terms of how you interact with numbers at this point. The big the new part that we're really going to wrestle with today here is that we're looking at the billions place to the thousands place. These are really some, from a fifth grade perspective, some newer terms and a new part of our number system we're going to be building on. So that's what we're going to look at today is really dealing with multi-digit numbers, including decimals, um, that we'll look at in standard, expanded, and word form. Um, this here should be where you're really at up through fourth grade. My hopes are that you've seen beyond this, but this could be our place value chart. And so you've seen this. We know our commas kind of go here, but we see this as we look here and we've got our ones place right here, our tens place. Now I'm going to get a little off on my writing here. I'm going to run into this. I'll try to go small. My hundreds place, thousands place, my 10,000s place, my 100,000s place, and last but not least, from a fourth grade perspective, the millions place. Um, as fifth graders, we are going to grow this both to the left as well as to the right. So we'll take a look at, from a whole number perspective, how we're going to grow it to the left at first. Well, following, if you look at, there's a bit of a pattern here. You notice with each, what we call these here are like families here. They kind of group together, right? You've got your ones here. You've got your thousands. And then if you follow that pattern, right? And this were my millions. Well, look at the pattern here. After the base, we can call that kind of the base of each one. And then every time you see the 10, 100, 10, 100, which would lead this here if we were to add, and we are going to add. Now my squares won't be as perfect as that, but we add here, and then we've got the, look at me, making a mistake there. Got all kinds of tools on this thing. And we're going to call this our 10 millions place. And then next, following again that pattern, we would have the 100 millions place. So that pattern is really important in terms of understanding how things are grouped together. We also see that those families, and that's not a proper math term, we call the families here, but I think it's really good to illustrate that grouping of hundreds, tens, ones, hundreds, tens, ones. And every time you see that, or hundreds, tens, base, let me say it that way. But in that, it helps us know where to place the comma and how things are grouped together. Um, but then we can add here the 10 millions and then 100 millions. And in fact, we're going to take it a step further, and we're going to add one more place to the left, and that there will have our comma, and then we are going to put our B for billions place. And if I were to continue to go to the left, if you can pick up on the pattern there, the next place to the left would be 10 billions, and then 100 billions place. So this is kind of a look at how it grew to the left. Now I'm going to take some of this stuff off just because we're going to do a little work with it today. And so I don't need this. I did want to show you just how they're grouped together. When we look at writing our numbers in standard form, it's really important that we understand where those commas go and how that looks. So let's take a look just real quickly at just some different values here. My ones place, what I'll do is I'm going to do this in what's really called base 10, okay? So my lowest value of each base, okay? My lowest value here is 0. Then this one, and you may have to take your computer and turn it sideways here, but the one way I can get all the numbers here and just make a point. My lowest value in the base, in my tens place, is just to have 10. My lowest in the 100, you see the pattern that's starting? The lowest in the 1,000. You see what's happening is every time I go a place to the left, I'm adding a 0. And we're going to talk about this in future lessons with the place value chart in terms of how those numbers shift. But it's really good just to kind of see. And this would be my 10,000. This would be my 100,000. This would be my 1 million. So I have 6 zeros. My 10 million. You see this growing and growing and growing. And then billion, you have 9 zeros. Count myself. And so you see that pattern there. Everything is constantly growing. In fact, if you look here, and I should really, let me change this just to be a little more mathematically correct. I'm going to make this my 1. It doesn't need to be 0. If you look, every time I jump this way, what's happening there? What do you think mathematically is happening? Every time I jump a place to the left, you can see this happening. You see that? 1 times 10 is 10. 10 times 10 is 100. 100 times 10 is. So 10 groups of that lowest unit equals the next unit to the left. Now that's a pattern that will hold true. In fact, and we'll get into this more, we will get into this more in units to come, or not units, lessons to come. But then when I go to the right, it's being divided by 10. When I go to the right, I'm dividing it by 10. And so we start to see that relationship between each place. But what I really want to know is, what does a 10, it can't have 3 zeros, and it has to have a certain look. And so that's everything from the ones to the billions and kind of what it looks like. But one of my favorite parts about 5th grade content is that we don't just deal with whole numbers. In fact, you've already started dealing with some fractions, and many of you may have had some experience with decimals before, but now it's time to really get into them, and we're going to start with, we're going to explore that other side. And you're going to see this here, and this is my decimal. Now, I'm going to make an imaginary line here. It's more for an illustration, okay? So my imaginary line just tells me that there are, there's everything over here on this left. These are whole numbers. It is an entire, it's whole. But when I come over here, I'm dealing with a part of a whole. So 2 different worlds, and in a lot of ways they use the same rules, but in some ways they don't. And so we'll have to kind of learn what are those rules. I'm not going to go as far to the right as I went to the left. I'm only going to introduce you to just, and I hope I don't run out of room, but I should. I'm going to introduce you to 3 places, okay? The first place I'm going to introduce you to is the 10th. And what this looks like, and I'm going to write this one up right. It is a 10th. You've seen that as a fraction, and then you may have seen it as a decimal. It could look either way. But it's just a 10th. It is a part of a whole. If I had a piece of pizza, and I cut it into 10 pieces, this would represent one of those 10. It's not the whole pizza, it's just one of those 10. This next place over is the 100th. The 100th place. Now notice these THs on the end. They're hugely important, otherwise they begin to look like their counterparts on the whole number side, and that would not be accurate. But the 100th, as a fraction, it looks like this, or as a decimal, 0.01 would be the base. Now it's very important, one of my pet peeves when we deal with decimals is this 0 here in front. I want you to write it every time. Don't just start like this and write 0.1. I think it's a little more sophisticated math when you would go ahead and write 0.1. And then last but not least, we have thousandths, and you can kind of see probably a pattern. We're just going backwards. We've got the thousandths place. Again, we've got that TH there. Hundredths, tenths. And this one here is 1 over 1,000. That's its value. And you're going to see 2 zeros with that. And so that's kind of an updated, so we've kind of grown this a little bit into where we've got whole numbers on the left, and then we've got these parts of a whole on the right. But I know this is a lot to deal with. So what I want to encourage you to do is you can hit the pause button and you can take a look at it and you can kind of go through it. You can also know that this is roughly at the 12th minute of our lesson. You can always come back and take a look at this. These videos are here for you. It's going to be a resource that you'll learn to use. But this is good for you. I'll also have a copy. I'll screenshot this and put a copy of this on our Converge page. But I just want to kind of get this in your head, kind of taking a look. But let's just shift over and talk about, hey, now we've got a broader understanding of numbers. Let's talk about, hey, what are some of the different ways we express numbers? One of the things that you've seen for a very long time is you've seen some different ways. I mean, we express numbers this way. What is that? Well, this would be 5, right? I mean, could I do dots? This would be, 5 as well. So we see all of these different ways to express numbers. Well, our job now is we're going to come up with 3 very intentional ways to express numbers in a way that show off your understanding of the number. 3 that we're going to focus on is we're going to look at the standard form. And again, these should be more reviewed than anything. Expanded, and then word form. Now, I will be honest with you. I'm going to focus the least amount on Word because I think that's really a good classroom lesson, and through the digital experience, I'm going to definitely brush up on it. But these are things through our conversations with one another that I can really help tweak. So I'll lay some baseline stuff, but my focus really is going to be on the expanded and the standard form through this. And I'll show you kind of how they go into one another. And I'll start with just a whole number. So if I take 725, well, expanded, what I'm doing is I'm saying, well, 725 equals 700. This is this guy here, right? Okay? The 2 isn't just a 2, it's a 20. See that? And then we've got in the 1 to the 5 space. And so you should be able in this to see each of the numbers kind of represented in a way. And then, if I came over to words, 700. Now, here's what I want to do. I just want to pause. And then 25. You cannot say 725. And I'll tell you why in just a second. Because when we talk about, and I'm going to come back really quickly. Let me look at this. This decimal, when we speak it, here's the word. And. When I'm talking and I say, for example, if I had the number here, I'm going to give us a number. What if, again, let me just get some of this out of the way. And I'll talk a little bit about word. All right. What if I take this number here? Let's see, I'll use this little 15 and 7. You ready? I would say it like this. 15, I know how to say this part, right? I say that 15. I say that all the time. But I say 15 and 7, and then where did it end? Tenths. 15 and 7 tenths. That's how I say the decimal. 15 and is my decimal point. It's kind of like that pop, and 7 tenths. And then, like, let me give us another one. We can practice this for a second. I'll leave the 15 there. What if I said 15? I want to move the 7 over to the right. And now the 7 is in the hundredths place. So I say 15 and 7 hundredths. Make sense? What if I bump him over one more time? Now it's 15 and 7 thousandths. Now what if this guy here is here? Doesn't change it. I know how to say this, don't I? I know that is 27. Well, this 15 and 27 thousandths. I say that 27 wherever it ends, and then I say that place. So, for example, what if I move my 27 over? So now 15, make sure I have my, and 2700. That's how the word form comes into play there. I'll post another video as well on our conversion to kind of give you a look at that. But again, Classroom will really polish this up, okay? But here, back to our sheet. And that's why. So knowing that now, you can't use and there. Go 725. It's 725. But that's my standard and expanded form as far as 725. But let's take a look at, and this here again, this is such a review. Let me, I want to get on some decimals with the expanded form. So I'm gonna show you some different ways with decimals. So my standard form here, let's take a look, and we'll keep with our 15 and 27,000 or hundreds. There's a couple different ways I can do this. Let's go with what we know first. We know how to separate that. Now, first thing I can do is called decimal form. All I'm doing is separating this out. See, this is my 0.2, 0.2, 0.07. This is decimal form. Here's a way I can do it in fractions. 10 plus 5 plus, because doesn't that represent 2 tenths? And doesn't that represent 7 100ths? And a third way is called standard notation. Okay? Now I'm going to take, and this is what I'm doing, I'm going to get this guy here and I'm going to expand him a little bit. I'm going to say, well, I have 2 of 1/10 plus 7 of 1/100. Okay? Now, here's how that makes sense to you. It's this guy right here. And let's come in on it. Okay? This is the multiplication side. You have to trust me here. The multiplication sign also means of. Okay? Meaning, think through this. 2 times 3 equals 6. What if I had 2 of 3s? That would be 6, right? For example, if you had $3 and I had $3, we have 2 groups of 3, which would mean total we have $6. That multiplication sign also means, and it really helps you understand the multiplication better, but it's of. You have 2 groups of this. And so when you back up and you look at that and you say 2 groups of 1/10, well, that's what 2/10 is. And so what that expanded notation is we're taking that 2/10 and we're breaking it apart. But these are the 3 ways that we're going to take a look at expanded form with decimals. And so just my advice here is to get the practice and just to kind of slow down and look, does it make sense? Things that you might see that could throw you for a loop is seeing it, 10 plus 5 plus 0.2 plus 0.7. Well, that's not the same, as you'll know that there are 2/10 and 7/10. Well, that should be 9/10 there, and that's not, this would be wrong. You want to make sure in that thousandths place, or hundredths place, I'm sorry, that you've got a 0 there in the 10th place, okay? So again, we're going to take a look at the expanded form and give you some practice with that. So a couple things before I jet off here. I went a little longer than I like to go, but just make sure that um, you're able to read and write numbers from the billions place to the thousands place in standard expanded word form. We will really work on the word form as we get into the actual classroom, but digitally get the practice on standard and expanded and be ready to rock and roll. That's your lesson for today. Best of luck, and I will talk to you soon.